Okay, so I may start because the beginning is a little presenting. So thank you very much for joining Understanding and Unlocking Inertia. In this session, I will mainly ask you to join and just collaborate. What we will do is we go through a past experience I had where I was in a company where we had a strong inertia. I will not disclose everything, but I will be able to share a little about how we were doing. And what I will try to do is that I will expose the context and then I will ask you please join, ask questions on how you will do it differently. So the important part is that I will aim to share how we did it in the past and what we achieved. I am Aleix Morgadas. I'm head of engineering at Atomic Jar. We do development tools, but previously I was in other companies like consultancy, product companies, and this is an experience that I did in a previous company, so not in the current one. But here I am not the important one. This is the agenda. So what we will do is I will introduce you the context, where we are, what we were doing, and presenting a little each other. And then we will start drawing the things ourselves and going through. And please, in the chat or in the shared notes, you can see the link to the video presentation if you want to join. It should be available. If not, I would just reshare it just in case the chat is not permanent, but I think it is. And then you should be able to just log in. No, there's nothing required you to log. So you're anonymous, so not appear here. Great. Here, in case you want me to present yourself, you can go here, just add yourself, which is your role, just to present to each other if you like. So it's an optional for you. It's in this zone. So I will call everyone to me. So if you're able to do this, feel free. Present yourself. And later, when you finish, I will ask you I would like to know a little your experience. So please get a dot and place where you have Wardley mapping. I did some no experience first time, or I had some, or I just did multiple of them. So you can place yourself. The same thing with Miro, because I will be doing a lot of things in Miro. And then two other contexts, which is software architecture, if you're familiar with software architecture, or team topologies, or the team tech context, just place yourself so I can somehow adapt the conversation to you all. Yes. There. I will zoom out so people can see what we will be doing later. Software. Oh, great. That will be fun. So I was sometimes concerned which audience will be attending. And I think if we go engineering, I think we will have more fun, as it's also what I was doing. So we will be able to get into the details. Okay. Yep. When you finish adding your card, just please, if you just put the things here. For example, I am experienced in Miro. I have been exposed to software architecture for a while. Fintech wise, I only had working one company fintech. Team topologies, I have been extensively using it. So yes, super great. I'm glad that it looked like we will have this. I hope that this will be interesting for you. So we have several experience on Wardley. Okay, Miro, it's perfect. So glad that Miro nowadays is ubiquitous and everyone is Miro. Software architecture. Oh my God, it's I did this presentation for you all. Apologies, fintech, somehow exposed. Okay. Great. So I will probably combine, because you're familiar with team topologies, I will combine Wardley mapping of team topologies and not unlock inertia, because most of this was team-based unlocking most of the time. So I will be able to combine them both. Okay. So I will provide you the context, right? The context when I joined this company was about how I can help. They were providing this product. They were building it in-house, and things that you need to know about this. It was in 1 year of development and not yet released, which means that the seeking cost fallacy was about adding more. So the more time you invested, and it created we want to release this. More context. It had a high leadership expectation. So the product vision and the product things were created as well. And it came with this thing. So they want to say, we want to build a product that is a B2B2C. And the main benefit is that we want to allow the companies to provide benefits for the employees. Just credit. No, in this case was benefits like a ticket restaurant, ticket transport, home office, all this kind of thing. It was some years ago. And the main thing that this product was quite ubiquitous and have several people had, there was a pain back then, which was every time people was issuing a new benefit, they need to issue a new card. And the main proposal was that, okay, we will unify everything in one card only, and they can be able to access all the benefits like home office, ticket restaurant, transport, and everything else from a single card. And that was the main proposition. So they went to companies and said, you can offer this product to your employees to have higher retention. And the main idea that you can do is you upload your employees into a system, you add this benefit to your employees, we issue you a card, and it doesn't matter how many benefits you enable for your employee. The employee only have one card and is able to access everything. The employee will have a mobile application to see all their benefits, and they can use this credit card and all the money in different shops and establishments, in this case, at food restaurant. So this, you all have been exposed to like these benefits from companies before? Yes, it's very ubiquitous in Santander. Great. So it was like not that it was a problem which was understood. We all as employees were exposed to this problem. So we're building this product for other companies. The main innovation was this thing about only one card for several benefits. But when I started, mainly, they give me this. So we have two users. We have employees and companies. And the user needs is like, they want to add a new employee. We want to enable benefits for these employees. They need to activate credit cards and they need to use it. Exactly. So this two belongs to companies and this three belongs to employees. After here, it was quite interesting. So why all of this didn't say like why it was taking 1 year of development and it was not looking like it was about to happen. So between us, so if you will place this product, I would say that this company, let's say it's called Benefits, right? So if you will need to place this one in some area of the evolution, where you will place this product right now, more into the right or more into the left. So with this thing about only one credit card thing, so you can see there is like well established, or it's more, yes, it's very rare that we have this.
It's well established.
It's in this area, right? So why we was taking 1 year and so on and so forth. So I took a step back and I opened this area here and I started to talk to people about this. So I wanted to understand what was preventing people to, did you see the doctrine?
Yep.
Yes. Okay. I was started like speaking to people and understanding where we were. So it was a terms of maturity of the company or what we can say, why was the inertia? Why I say this? Because we were more into the private beta phase. So it was not forming, was very failure. It was sharing a lot of the principles of this area. Therefore, the main thing was how we are able to move from the product from here to here. That was the main challenge. So I joined the company to move benefits from it was not working in production, it was not available, instead now it's stable, it's growing in the company and so forth. So my main inertia that I found is we need to put the product there. So what was the inertia and where we're coming from? Any questions so far? So we're going good, right? So I will give you the context regarding the phase on here. So it looked like I was trying to going it fast and it looked like we were not using a common language. So if you talk to teams, they refer to several things differently. If you talk to business, you talk to developers, you talk to sales, they weren't using the common language. Indeed, they were like selling the product differently depending to who you talk to. So the first thing I found is like this alignment between the language on the product itself. The focus on user needs were also not there. So because remember that was rotation of leadership. But when you change leadership, you also change like direction, the purpose and the strategy. And it all was causing inertia. So you had 3 months of development with one intention, then you change leadership and all the code was there, was not able to use, and then you move here. So it was changing the user needs because these were having different pivotals. It's true that they knew them because it's ubiquitous and it was in the markets, but they were not able to know, okay, we want this direction on the other. So it was something there. And here, the know your users. So they know the customers. They had previous products. Sorry, here from the context, it was a very big company. So they have already some companies and they were offering new products. So they knew them, they had them, and they were trying to add new product into the thing. And nobody was challenging the assumptions about why of the past. So people were carrying over past decisions, no problem, they were going through. And lately, so when you have a lot of leadership retention, you also have the people in the teams also rotate. And the people that were joining and the other people leaving were not having situational awareness about why things were made in the past. So this is the first thing that I found, which is the communication was broken. The development was in the direction of knowing and product centric, and it was a good first start. So that was the starting point that we are going to have to take. So now we're gonna just save this if I can, my desktop, and then I will just move this into. So this is the starting point that we have. Do you consider that this is enough to prevent a product to move from Genesis or custom into this stability? Can this really say this is a good enough, a strong evidence that what is causing us unable to move is this area? Did you have been exposed to this about the communication issues causing inertia? About unable to move things and stabilizing them? I see some notes. Yeah, that it's enough to say like this is really a thing. Looks like we need to dig more. So even though I was focusing on the communication area, I started to dig into, okay, what is the thing? So let's us all together do the value chain a little. So we had companies, we have employees, we have the different needs. And the first thing we can do, and because I am assuming that most of the people, you said that you are familiar with software systems. Yes. Okay. You're all exposed. Good. We will get into the systems themselves. So we have the companies and employees. They are connected. Okay. So which are the things that were causing also inertia? So I want to know why these things happened. And there were several subsystems. Let's get into that. So you have an application and you have a web application for the, yes. So these ones they had the web, exactly, and the other have an application. Indeed, if you go into that web and app, it's not that hard. So if you go like you would need an application, web, it's very stable. So it was not enough to know these things. Let's break them down more. Let's go into architecture per se. So I broken things up. So I was trying to go here and then think small, like knowing the details because it was not available. So I focus on communication. Let's talk to the teams and then unify and then think small. So I wanted to move and say, let's challenge everything. Let's use common language and let's improve this. So I wanted to go in this direction of here. So what I found is that we didn't have, even though the salespeople were talking in this direction, the team didn't know anything about this. Anything about that. So the team was not exposed to this area of the system. They broke it. And when I joined, it was a strong barrier between them both. Therefore, all the assumptions that were here were not accessible by this team. So there were two teams, and these two teams were unable to speak because they belong to different business units. So you have not only the tribe, so there was a team within a tribe, but the team that was doing the B2B and the people that were doing the B2C, they belong to different business units. Therefore, you can imagine that if I have a team here, let's get below here, and I have another team here, then you have your manager, and they have their own manager, that they have another thing, until a point that you have a people here. So you have 3-4 level depth. If you want to change something here, you need to go all this depth in order to change the thing here. So I found what was the main thing. The difference between both were that long that all this synchronization was happening every 3 months. So that was an issue that we had. Why we were that slow? because between something and then you align with everything, you can have a gap of 3 months between. So let me add here a problem, which is that we identified different business units involved. But that can mean that, yes, the one level to dinner, great. Let's get more into what is make housing that we are going slow. In the architectural level, on all of this, I will summarize everything as benefit. And what we found here is that it was using several systems, subsystems. In order to have transactionals, you need a card provider, card issuer, or people that send you a card, right? We did it, we used a product, so we rented it. Great. We now got another one, which is having a person that does a transaction management, transaction like MasterCard or something. You don't want to custom build that. So we were using that as well, like transactional action system. That was great enough. What we were custom building was the application. And then we have multiple systems like account system, service, at things like transaction service, and you have more things like, I don't know, account, this, know your customer, service. But because you have another application, which is, remember that you have another team somewhere else? We have like here, like the company service that we don't know who they are, but they goes to us before they talk to here. They talk to all of them and so forth. Then we have the benefit product that is through the application that talks to all of them. Great. Up to here, it was quite good. So we have services that talk to the other. I don't know why this is happening. It's using the other. Up to here, everything made sense. So we have custom built services and we're using providers. Up to here was great. So I didn't know why we were that slowly moving. So what we found digging more is that you need to understand where the context was. And just imagine that you, instead of being alone, you have this one, you have competing in your tribe, other products. So you have product B and you have the product C, more products in the same thing, which look like the same product you're doing, but it's not fully. What we found is that we have 3 teams and all of them using these services. So it was a shared service between team A, team B, and team C, let's say this way. So we were unable to see, I think, only one area. So you need to see the overall, like why is this housing? So just imagine that you share services between 3 teams and you can see in the code things like, if I am this product, behave like this. If I that product, behave like that. So in order to make that happen, we start digging into breaking things. So just imagine that when you change something like this, which is failure is moderated, you not only break your product, but you break others' product. Therefore, it requires you to go extremely slow in order to develop something because you're not breaking your own, but you're breaking others' systems when you evolve things. Right. So we were not managing failure quite well. We were breaking everyone. There was like people complaining about other teams and people didn't want to change how they're working because it was messing up everyone. So even though we started unifying the language within the teams with sales and operations, we were talking smaller. We found that we were unable to manage failure. Failure was not well accepted. There was duplication about systems and a lot of code between things. And because everything takes a lot and it was breaking, we were using more like waterfall approaches every 3 months because of all this coordination in things that needed fast evolving. We found this. So here we didn't change anything. We're working. We only were identifying where we were. And of course, we were focused on like how we evolve things and the contracts versus focus on the outcomes. So that was the situation. Have you been exposed to this kind of environment before? Yes. How did you evolve this just a little? So how you will overcome this situation? So you analyze this, you can do it quite yourself, alone as a manager, because you can move things, focusing on things. You can ask but this is more human. So I would love to know a little like how you will approach it and to overcome this situation where there's duplication between teams because there are high failure and people want to be autonomous. So therefore they duplicate the stuff. But so I would love to hear from you a little. So what will be your approach to overcome psychological safety on overcoming the practices about failure and so on?
I think for me, it would be crucial for everyone working on this to see the big picture, to get line of sight to the whole system. That would be crucial, and then have some kind of alignment or coherence on what is to be achieved. Because it seems fragmented right now.
Everyone is pulling in their direction.
Yeah, sort of.
And the direction, why it's important, how you manage the failure or fear of failure.
The fear of failure.
So for me, sorry if I barge in, Eric, but for me, fear of failure, a lot of times that needs a change in narrative. So to understand, first you might have to differentiate between things that really go badly if things go wrong. So understanding whether you're to the left or the right of the Wardley map, essentially, but you need then to have a narrative change that certain things we do to try and to evolve, and then it's okay to learn. And instead of talking about fear of failure, we talk about rapid learning, and then we don't always get what we want. So there's a big narrative work to be done around that, I think.
And that's a very good point, depending on if you're on the left or on your right, to understand the impacts of mistakes or errors. That's a good point.
Any other to contribute?
I guess, Alex, on that, do the teams, like, how did they react at the time? Did they have the chance to learn from failure and take some actions from it? Or was it very much like firefighting and then move on to the next thing?
Exactly. That's a great observation because everything was here in this area. They need to constantly firefighting, and it was a pressure from leadership. Like, hey, why is this failing all the time? And they didn't have time for learn. So we need to change that part. So we changed the narrative from failure to, hey, we need to learn by failure. So we introduce things like, coming crazy, like postmortems. We normalized failure. We normalized, hey, this, and we start celebrating learning. And it was a change. So what we need to do is protect a little the team and say, hey, it's okay to fail because if you fail fast and you solve fast, overall, it's a good outcome. So we need to do some training, not only in the team level to change the mindset, but also normalize that, hey, this happens and it will not go away. And it's true that when you are failing a lot, even though you have private data users, there is like this tension about it's another week, a lot of issues in production. Okay, just again, this, and I don't have time for that. We also add this with 80%, 20% rule, where we dedicated the 20% of the time into stabilizing the system. And it given breath to the teams into moving things, crucial parts that were failing a lot into, okay, now it's stable, it works, and that's it. So we needed to identify which were the key ones that were failing the most and move them to the right. Maybe not all of them, but maybe one. Like let's only move this one. So that was a job that we had to do. Identify one, stabilize this one, and moving it to the right.
I think also putting your team topologies hat on, it's potentially a sign that the team's cognitive load is too high.
Yep.
If they don't feel that they might be looking after too many services, so they can't evolve one to stabilize it.
Exactly. So it was interesting. When we analyzed the cognitive load of the team, was on the root. So you had to manage, a team was needed to manage 7 services, where 5 of them were shared within other teams. And they were not autonomous. So there was another kind of thing, which is people were not full stack. So we have a team full of backend engineers, but we have an application. So and then we realized that when I was digging more, that the person doing the application was shared between teams. So you had the person with all the pressure to solve everything on a lot of cognitive load. So you cannot code fast because this person was needed to prioritize 3 product roadmaps at the same time. Here, what we did was doing training for the team. So we decided that team that we were talking about the benefits to be full stack. And we dedicated resources, about training, so that the cognitive load to level up was reducing over time. So we had lucky that people, we accepted failure. Yes, or they are being recorded. So they're, sorry, I was answering the question about Eric. Here, the thing is that when you are a team that is very specialized, but the problem about that specialization is that creates more cognitive load because you're only getting more deeper. And what we did was, instead of having multiple teams conversations between, okay, this team is doing something, I need to coordinate with another team that does the front end, we did everything in cross-functional team. And that, all the communication overhead reduced and reduced also the cognitive load of that. Going more deeper, I will ask, just imagine that each of these products have their own services, and somehow there are several here in a cluster that are shared between all of them. Here, the question will be like, how we can this look like an inventory tower somehow? When you are you do a service which is not as stable, you put one on the top, which is not as stable, and given a point, everything is not stable because there is a chain. So what we found is that in the previous part, and going back to here, is that we're not using appropriate methods because we wanted people to go faster doing this thing here. So I needed to change the mindset about creating more things and going fast into stabilizing stuff. We changed multiple things, but they didn't work fully. So what I focus is on, okay, this course shirt, I need to stabilize them. So we created here a team that is focused on stabilization. Therefore, we've hired people with the mindset of, instead of me building a lot of things every week, I need to make things stable. So what we did finally is that, okay, here is a team, here is another team, and another. We created the fourth team, which is a platform from team topologies, platform as a product, that was focused on, okay, let's take ownership of them, make them evolve. So instead of focusing on throughput, about doing things in the vertical side, we focus on moving things into the right in order to give stability not only to this product, but to all of them. Have you been using this technique about product platforms in order to stabilize systems or reduce the cognitive load? Here again, on the streamline teams?
Yeah. We had similar thing, like on team that was, just like that. If we had some services that were used by a lot of teams, but it wasn't necessarily the goal to stabilize. It was more that there were lots of dependencies and it was to reduce the dependencies. Sorry, not to reduce dependencies, but to platform teams, the way they work, even though they're the products, the way they measure themselves is different to the streamline teams, isn't it? So we move the services, some of the common services into the same team, so they manage them in the same way. So they treat the other teams as customers.
And how did you were able to introduce this change? Because platform, there was an inertia about introducing platform in our case, which was in the past, there was like people came and said, we will do this, which is a platform, which in the future will return things. So we had the pushback from the leadership, like we tried it in the past, platform doesn't work in this company because they want to build everything so that in the future you can be able to build something on top. Did you have been enabled? I will do this.
Yes. So strangely enough, I did a Wardley map. So it's easier for the senior leadership to understand streamline teams because they're more closely related to revenue and customers. So by drawing a Wardley map and basically saying you realize all of these user needs are all dependent, they all flow through like one service. They then I'd see the value of doing that right because it would affect lots of different user needs and lots of different sources of revenue. That's how I argued it.
Curious question though, because what sometimes happens in some companies that I've worked in is that you start to rewrite everything from scratch. Is that what happened in both of your cases, or how did you handle it?
Go for it, please.
Yeah, no, it didn't for me. I'm trying to think. Sorry, I'm thinking a bit out loud here. So one of the services we did actually start again, but it was because it wasn't easy to separate and it wasn't being exploited properly. There were lots of problems for it, so it made sense. But again, I know that's why I find, I'm not saying I'm a really a really great like Wardley Raffle, but I just find it's quite a good kind of communication tool as well. Once people get it, you can talk through the stories within it.
So in our case, what happened is that before people said that we are building this platform so that in the future you can build a lot of products. So this platform had all the context about all the things that want to happen and was not delivering. So here the challenge was to say, we will throw away maybe like the 7 functionalities that are being developed but not used. We will get the 2 ones that are more used by this service. And what we will do is this. So a platform, we change from platform supporting everyone into platform being this tiny and only supporting one product. The others don't. So we're betted into, we create only a platform from one team. And the reason was that using team topology is nomenclature here. It's like we collaborate between this streamline team and this platform team so that in the future, the next ones are just only consuming the APIs. But it will be tiny versus very big. The inertia here was that the previous bets were these kind of platforms. We did a lot of alignment and then we went into it. It was hard when you need to throw away 1 year of work. It's hard, super hard. So we had to show progress fast. And that's why we're focusing on the more critical use case. That, for example, let's say that I know your customer is the one failing the most. How I can unblock this? Okay, now. So that we only focus in one use case and we move it into a stable. When you see that as a result that you have less tickets, less contact support, and it drops, people just say, okay, I like this strategy. But without showing a win on the short term, people will not buy it on you. So we need to normalize failure. So in case it was me as a leader getting the blame, if something goes right, protecting the team and focusing and narrowing into one thing or 2 things at most versus the previous thing, which is we will do all of this. So the inertia here that we have spoken at the beginning was that we were not using common language between business, so sales, operations, and tech. We challenged everything. We were start thinking small. And then we started managing inertia. I wouldn't say that I did it super well because inertia goes in super well. So creating relationship was important. We started managing failure. In that team was working well. In the others didn't seek him that much, that approach. So you need leadership that is really into this, creating psychological safety, know how to manage failure and take blame. And we started using this thing about how it's called, which is platform and so on and so forth. Therefore, we started to use the appropriate methods. And we also start focusing here. I would put it like in green because a lot of job was doing. This is the span of 1.5 years work. And maybe between moving this from red to green, it's already 3 months. It's not like obvious change, but it was requiring a lot. And this one was the fire, small components. Yes. So we started doing this and I started to be more sharing this with the team. So at the beginning, the first 2 months, I was doing that almost in myself. So I needed to start doing trainings on demand-driven design, trainings on different things. And then I just started sharing more when I build the trust within my organization with what I'm saying. So versus telling them, now we've got to work this way with mapping. I was doing them in Ceph in order to track the things. But when people start using these things, then I started to be more open to this. Not with everyone. So it took me a while to be open with these things. And bias toward action. So versus all the time talking. So we started doing this thing about, okay, let's make an action here, move these things into a stable. So we started doing this part. Up to this point, we were able to move from this level. The application was not stable. We somehow went into the middle by doing this. So we normalized failure, we stabilized systems, with platform was getting better results, and the team started going into okay mode. So that the application did open to the public. So we succeed on that and did almost like a per 10 in revenue in 3 months. After that, I don't know if it's revenue, but at least in the numbers, you see them like the per 10 in 3 months. And the main thing was the blocking was that the past leadership created inertia on failure. So failure was the main thing it was preventing, using inappropriate methods on sharing all these things and behaving in this area as you are in Six Sigma. because people wanted to not fail. Therefore, they were planning super ahead and asking for leadership for 6 months on thing. The good part is that when you do that, the blame is not on the team, it's in the people that did the roadmap. So they created mechanisms to shield themselves from failure. When you normalize failure and that they can fail on this, also help them to use appropriate method. So failure was a huge thing, as well as the leadership changing, rotating, also creating inertia. So I didn't know that. And this was the first time it happened in my life where when you have a product that is not released and you have the leadership change like 3 times, you need to throw away stuff. So the past investment keep us away for releasing, not challenging assumptions, because when you have a team doing something and they leave, and when you change the stuff, there is assumption you don't know why you did what they did. Therefore, you have failure, fear of failure. You don't want to touch things. You should keep them. So you don't do assumptions. You keep what it is, and you just do the work, and you navigate this difficult situation. I know that we keep here in the architecture, and we don't know about somehow touches it. I will go more deeper and in all of these things, but I would like to know for you, like how, if you were exposed to the situation where you need to work with a super legacy thing, a lot of assumptions, and how you manage to, if you're used the doctrine thing to in order to know what you need to focus next. Because here the trick was me first going through the phase 1 as leader. I knew the situation, and then you do the actions to move away from red to green. But when I went to phase 2, here, me alone was not enough. And here I started to not transition from phase 1 to phase 2. Yes or yes, I needed to start involving more the team. So here the team was involved, but not knowing about next steps. In this area, you need to be way more transparent in order to achieve more maturity on phase 2. I would love to discuss this because that was my approach. And I would love to know if you're able to maybe works open in different situations and how you navigated this. But here, the overall recap will be that if you're here in red, you need to move away from red and go to green. That you need several little actions to move things from left to right. And only by moving one component, it changes all the picture. So I found that you don't need to have everything all together or big upfront stuff. Detecting what is critical help you to mature. And that after 6 months, somehow it took me to move this from red to green. The phase 2, it takes way more time and it takes a lot of people think. So you need a lot of learnings and it takes even more. I would love to know a little about your experience, or if you use this in order to take your decisions about how to improve team's maturity.
So a curious question from my side. This is really super cool, Alex. Thank you for a great walkthrough of what you did. It's amazing. And seeing how you worked with doctrine, how important doctrine is, and how you consciously use this to analyze your situation. A couple of curious questions from my side. Did you feel that you had the trust from upper management, let's say the CEO or the CTO or the CIO? Were you on that level, or were you reporting to the C-suite?
I was reporting to the VPs. And so I was lucky that before joining this challenge, I was in another challenge in the same company. And I was able to so this is like the second phase in the company. I was in another. So I gained a lot of trust from the leadership because I was reporting, and I changed dramatically how, instead of being like, I'm reporting, I was like, I see them as allies. Hey, let me help you here. And by you knowing what they matter, I was like doing this thing about these people only need this. And I want to know what you need. So we created this relationship before I needed to do this drastic measure about I need to throw away a full platform thing. So I would say that if I don't have that relationship established when I need to take the decision, I will not have been able to have buy-in on anything I was doing. So I was lucky that the VPs were trusting me and they just betting on me with the C-level. All the VPs I have in my side, VP of product, VP of business, and VP of engineering. And I understood them 3. I was using common language. And because I was using common language, they're like, okay, we believe in this. And when you're feeling for a year, you're desperate. So when you come with novel things, they say, okay, let's try something different because the path didn't work. So they also were open-minded as well.
And for my understanding, there were no changes in the VPs. They were the same Okay. So that
think-
was rather stable.
That was rather, when I joined, they changed some VPs and we were like together starting, all of us. So what happened is that the previous leadership just somehow rotated and then we inherited this thing and we were like 3 or 4 new leadership positions in that situation and we were with a lot of energy. So that was also a good thing that I consider that when you start, have good energy, you want to make things and you are fresh, that also reduces the inertia about trying things. And what happens is that because I was engineering manager back then, that below people had inertia because, okay, just again, leadership rotated. In that situation, some people had to let go as well. So when you have leadership inertia and you're unable to move, or you don't have the enough, sometimes we need to let some people go. Or inside rotation, like in the same company, was it that, okay, now you move to another tribe or to another thing and we bring another person. That also works well because you don't need to let go people, but you also have fresh minds into the thing.
And that's a double-edged sword because, as you say, you get new thinking, new fresh energy, but you could also get some fear from the people who are remaining. That, okay, people were let go. Maybe I'm next. So it's a double-edged sword from that angle. That's what I've seen over the years anyway. But anyway, these are also crucial components, I think, for what you did. In addition to the doctrine, you can call them leadership aspects that are also important. Things like trust and coming back to what you asked us in the beginning about fear. And if people have been let go, that creates a bit of an unsafe environment sometimes. And that can create inertia because people don't want to move. They just wait for orders because they are so afraid of doing things wrong that they might get fired.
Indeed, I always say that in leadership, it's hard to let people go, but it's harder to build up team trust again. The time between someone is no longer in the team and the team is again performing varies a lot, but it takes time. The thing here is that people had the strong relationships. So we went I started with teams of 8 people and I decided to go for teams of 4 in order to reduce communication as well and go more aligned. And those things about the smaller teams, high cohesion, and then full stack work better as well. So a lot of people let go, but also the people that remain and just had the stronger team relationship. So relationships were critical for all of this to happen. So you cannot do this without that. At least I'm from Spain. So for us, relationships are super important in order to make decisions. So we consciously worked on how to make that happen and leadership before I relate those strong relationships before you need them somehow. So it happened.
And guess what? It's important all over the world, not only in Spain. But it's so easy for us as engineers and developers to forget that because we think everything is so algorithmic. And if we just do our analysis and do our planning, things will work. But it's human beings and it's relationships. So that combo of technical and social and people, that's what it makes it magical.
So I want to put these 2 pictures next to each other, which is that in order to overcome inertia, sometimes you don't need, what I realize is that sometimes you don't need that much. Sometimes you need only the 2, 3 critical things, but you need to understand which are of them. So by focusing on communication, solves a lot of things. Focusing on how we operate, solves a lot of things. And development, even though maybe it was not excellent, was not the critical part about removing the inertia. Was how you operate and how you communicate. And somehow we were able to overcome it. I will maybe stop sharing in order to have this 8 minutes wrap up to understand how it was for you, the conversation. But yes, so for me, I will finish because if I didn't open the next thing that we did, it will take me 30 minutes more. But looking forward to hear your opinions on any question that you have. I'd love to answer.
Can I just ask a quick question? That's really interesting, by the way. Thanks for that. Question about something I'm thinking about at the moment is how do you start to introduce these techniques to an organization that's not familiar with them? I'm wondering when you were using these techniques from Wardley mapping, etc. You're talking about being transparent with people about it, but do you talk to people and say, we're going to do Wardley mapping, or did you just introduce it in a more stealthy kind of way?
More stealthy. When I joined this company, what I was doing mainly was doing a lot of trainings. So I established myself, like I will do the manual design training, team project, topology training, architectural training. I started to just have this routine about I do learnings every 2 weeks. So people get like open mind, okay, let's learn something. So what I was doing with this, like people that were more like championing these ideas within the organization, I grabbed them and I started sharing these things with them. And some people just start kicking in and doing the trainings about Ben, about Wardley mapping in practice. And it started just to happen naturally. So people were like, oh, I see what you're meaning. And you don't do it super official. I made it like natural kind of thing. And then people just were like mimicking the behavior. Okay, I understand this. And maybe you are not using everything from Wardley mapping, but they were able to say, I don't know why we're doing this custom build. And people will start asking questions like, why are we all doing a BFF custom build? Just use this or other thing. So start kicking in. But it was after I shared you the first 6 months. This thing required way more training, and it started to happen after a year about talking all the time about these things. It's slowly moving, but when it stays, people even change the language and start using it. Yes, I think 1 year it's successful for me. So I love that. Introducing that like more, I found that when you try to introduce it more, if forced, don't happen. That's what I found. So more slowly is better. That's the time in leadership. It's hard to me to go slow because you sometimes want things to happen and you make the mistakes about forcing, and it causes more harm. It causes more inertia, not allowing flow. So I needed to learn the hard way about being patient, and people learn in different like paces or speed or.
Cool, thanks. And just quick follow up. Do you think, in terms of people being receptive to these ideas, did you notice a difference between kind of people more on the business product side versus the engineering side? Or was it the same?
Engineering wise is where it was more. So can you repeat the question?
I was just wondering if people on the engineering side were more enthusiastic about this kind of approach.
Yes, way more. But also I think it's because I was more influencing there. And when you have more like you do trainings and people, the majority of trainers are the engineers, only because they are exposed more to you and the things that you want to try. That's why, because they were more enthusiastic, just because they were exposed. But there were some PMs as well that wanted to try it out, but it was not having that much as follow up as others. Yeah. Thank you for your question. Another. I don't know when is this next one session. We might run out of time. Yeah, I think it's 3 minutes. But if you don't have any other questions, I will stop the recording. Thank you for attending. I hope that you like it. And if you find me in Twitter or on LinkedIn, please share your feedback. I would love to keep improving the session.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, Alex.